Utah is one of the most moved to states in the country here at the end of 2023. But like all places, it ain't for everyone. Everything has its positives and its negatives. It's yins, it's yangs. It's Marshas and it's Jans. Back in 2017, we did our first series on this channel, and it was the top 10 reasons not to move to each state. And then we did a bunch of the cities. It was a good time. That series played a big part in this channel gaining traction. Almost 7 years later, subscribers have been requesting that we do an update to this series with the same snarky type comments that I started this channel off with. I think it's about time. A lot has changed in most of these states. This series is really about things you should know before you move. The things that you won't hear from someone like a real estate agent or a good friend that lives there. They always paint the perfect picture of a place. Some things on this list might not bother some of you, while others might think it's a deal breaker. Good examples of that are guns, weather, and politics. Some people can't stand the rain, some people don't mind it, like myself. Some people would like to use a Sharpie all over the Second Amendment, while others would like to use a highlight pen. We all have different opinions, and that's good. It's what makes life so much more interesting. Today we are looking at 10 reasons you might not want to move to Utah. Get it? Got it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, harsh winters. Most people consider Utah a desert state. And if you've never been there and you really don't know much about it, you just might assume that it's just warm all the time like Arizona. And yes, Arizona does have some places that are a little high in altitude and they get some cold weather. But Utah overall is at a higher elevation than most states. It's up there with Colorado and Wyoming as the three highest states we have. When you get higher up, it gets colder. So their winters can be pretty cold and pretty brutal, especially if you get up in the mountains of Utah. Now, a lot of people will tell you it's not that bad, and really, it's not. It's no Minnesota, and it doesn't get as bad as Wyoming. But I think the problem is a lot of people believe Utah is just a nice, warm place year-round. It's not. You're going to be buying some big jackets. A place I've visited a few times in Utah, which I really like, is Cedar City. Right now, they're running a brisk 18 degrees. Tomorrow, their high is supposed to be 24. Number 9, limited nightlife. Utah has stricter alcohol regulations and limited nightlife options compared to most other states, and that's kind of a bummer. But the good news is they spend more time in therapy than just about any other state. So they're spending their happy hour in therapy instead of bars. To me, it's the same result. You leave there feeling bad about your life choices. Now, to be fair, it's not a total boring state, especially if you like to get outdoors. You know, you go skiing, hiking, mountain biking, go to the national parks. There's a lot of stuff like that to do. They just come up short when it comes to a killer nightlife. So if that's your thing, you're not going to find it here. Or at least not many options compared to other states. Number 8, conservative culture. Utah has a predominantly conservative culture. Now, this may not align with the values of everyone, so keep that in mind before you move there. It's strange. Most people don't consider it a conservative state. You always think of the southern states as being very conservative, or you think of Texas or Idaho, Montana, Wyoming. The average Joe that isn't following along with politics may not know it. They know it's a religious state. They just don't know how conservative they are. Now, my feelings on the subject doesn't matter. I don't care what anyone else's politics or if they're conservative or liberal. I don't care. I'm going to live wherever I want. But that is important to some people. So that's why I say it's not for everyone. And if this is something that bothers you, Utah may not be your place. I just think they're not as out front with it and in your face with it like you'd find in Texas, in Idaho and the southern states. Number 7, air quality. Yeah, the air quality sucks here. Some areas in Utah, especially Salt Lake City area, face air quality problems due to inversions. Now, what is inversion? I'm going to tell you because I know, and the only reason I know is because I watch Brian Hall, y'all. It's an interesting weather channel. You should check it out. Anyway, a temperature inversion is a layer of atmosphere where the temperature increases with height. This is the opposite of what normally happens, where the air temperature decreases with height. So surface temperature inversions can really mess with our air quality, especially when winter rolls around. Basically what happens is that warmer air gets stuck above the cooler air, and that means that the air doesn't mix up and clear out the smog. So all those pollutants from cars and burning wood and factory end up getting trapped close to the ground, and we breathe all that in. Next thing you know, we all have lungs that look like Keith Richards. So if you're worried about your lungs looking like Keith Richards' lungs, don't move to Salt Lake City or Utah in general. They do have some nice areas, like way up in the mountains and away from all the cities. Those are nice, but around the cities, they can get some pretty bad air quality. Number 6, religious influence. Yes, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or LDS, has a significant presence in Utah, which can influence the politics and the culture, potentially making non-members feel like outsiders. I've heard of people complain about this. I've talked to other people that say it's really not that big of a deal. But honestly, I've heard more people say it's a problem. Myself, I think you should be able to worship however you want and do it however you feel is best for you. I don't think you should make other people feel bad because they're not on board with your thought process or your beliefs. That does happen, and you'll get the same treatment in small towns in like the Midwest and the South, so it's just something to keep in mind, back of your head. A lot of people do complain about it, so if it's something you're worried about, maybe Utah's not for you. Number 5, limited diversity. Now, I hate bringing up the diversity thing because we'll just get the comment section looking like, I don't know, a frickin' Klan meeting. Utah has a lower racial and ethnic diversity than many other states. I mean, it's right behind West Virginia. Now, like I've said many times before, I love a little diversity because that usually means good food. I mean, I grew up in an Irish-Mexican community. I have a problem living any place that doesn't have a whole bunch of Mexican food places. Not like those corporate Mexican food places like Chipotle or Taco Bell. I need a mom-and-pop taco place where only the grandkids speak English. When I walk in and that's the situation, I know the food's going to be great. If diversity is your thing, and you're not going to find much of it in Utah. Number 4, high altitude. Now, this one really only bothers you in the beginning, and it's just something you should be aware of. There's some different things that come with the higher altitude, like we've already talked about, the inversions and the cold weather. Well, you also got the altitude sickness when you first move there. You get used to it, but it's a little rough in the beginning. The older you are, and sadly, the heavier you are, it takes longer. If you have lung issues like COPD or something of that nature, Utah is not the state for you, especially in places like Salt Lake City, Provo. If you get up to Brigham City, that might be a little bit better, but if you do have limited lung capacity, you're going to suffer in this state. But if you're perfectly healthy, a good set of lungs, you'll be over it in a week or two. Some people might take a little bit longer, but that's usually what they say. Number 3, limited public transportation. Utah is a car state. If you don't have a car, you're not going far. The transportation options in Utah's larger metropolitan areas aren't as extensive as other metropolitan areas around the country. This can be a drawback for those that are more reliant on public transportation. I know everyone wants to tell me, well, they have Uber now and Lyft. Well, they do, but those can add up. Public transportation, especially if you're not killing it in the salary department, is a necessity for a lot of people. And if you're one of those people that don't like to have cars, or you can't afford a car with all the insurance and everything like that, you might want to stay out of Utah. A few years back when I was doing research for one of these videos about Utah and I got to the public transportation thing, I was reading about it, and one guy I came across, he said they came out to Utah in the wagon trains and they haven't gone very far past that since. Number 2, water scarcity. Utah faces water scarcity issues just like many of the other western states, and water conservation measures are often in place for the whole state, not just certain parts. Most of the desert states or mountain states like Utah, Nevada, Arizona, California depend on the Colorado River. These are very, very dry states. And they're also states that are growing in population, which means more water is needed to get these people through the day. And Utah is drier than my sense of humor. So that should tell you it's pretty dry. Utah is one of the driest states in the country. As of October 2023, the U.S. Drought Monitor lists less than 5% of Utah in moderate drought and 18% as abnormally dry. Now, why might that be a problem? As water becomes more and more of an issue, they start making more and more regulations that affect your daily life. Then, of course, your water bill will start going up because they have more infrastructure they have to put in to gather more water, just all these other things. Anything they can to get more water to the state, they're going to do, and it's going to cost money. And that money's not coming out of some pot of gold they found at the end of the rainbow. That's coming out of your tax dollars. All right, before we get to number one, if you're thinking about moving to Utah, there's a link for a website called Home and Money in the description area below. They can get you in touch with a real estate agent anywhere you need in the country. All right, on to number one. And number one, a high cost of living. Utah used to be the place to go to save some money. I mean, you get out of California, you go to Utah, it's cheaper. They're making up ground on California every single year. In certain areas, especially the Salt Lake City area, they have a relatively high cost of living there. Cities are always going to be more expensive, but Salt Lake City, Provo, and some of the other cities around there are really climbing when it comes to cost of living. As of January 2023, the cost of living in Salt Lake City was 8% higher than the state, and it was another 8% higher than the national average. When you look at housing, it's not much better. As of the third quarter 2023, the average home price in the United States was $430,000. The median price of $431,000. This is a 31% increase from the start of 2020, when the median home price was about $329,000. At the end of the third quarter 2023, the average home value in Utah was $502,647. So they got the US average beat by about $70,000. Now, it did drop, just like all markets right now, it dropped about 1% since the same time last year, but it's going to pick back up again, and it's going to keep going, and Utah's outpacing a lot of other states when it comes to real estate prices and cost of living, so it's just going to go up. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.